Right.
If you stay silent at a moment like this,
Right.
it's like aiding and abetting Israel's enemies.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, because you should know.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Mark Powell with my brother Frank Powell. We're the Powell brothers, 2 licensed real estate brokers in San Diego County. We specialize in traditional real estate, and we also do commercial real estate. Today, we're going to interview Esther Valdes Clayton on our show, Just to Let You Know. So be sure to click the subscribe button and ring the bell so we can get you all in on our podcast. Esther has a law firm here in San Diego County where she specializes in immigration law. She appears on local and national television. She's also a former school board member. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Esther Valdes Clayton.
So glad to be here, Powell brothers. I've known you guys since 2016.
A long time.
Yeah, a long
We
time.
go way back.
Yeah, we were at a giant school board conference together, brand new at what we were doing, and just realized education is not doing what they should be doing.
Were you a licensed attorney back then?
Absolutely. I've been practicing for 20 years. I've been practicing here in San Diego, mostly in immigration law, and I've enjoyed doing it. And I just stepped in to help out a little bit. Little did we know that during school board tenure, we'd go into the COVID lockdowns, CRT debacles, so many different confluence, and the parent movement. So I'm no longer serving, but I was glad to serve during that tenure. It was outstanding. I had an amazing time, but I'm back into the office.
Well, not only did you have an amazing time, and we're going to talk a little bit about everything. You had an incident there where there was a basketball game. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And then
Tortilla Gate.
a tortilla thing,
gate,
and then
right.
this guy
Yeah.
who apparently seemed to be some type of an operative for somebody else, nobody knows, started handing out tortillas to throw because one of the teams was Hispanic, which was it would be like throwing lumpias if it was a Filipino, or bagels if it was a Jewish game. It was so rude.
It was so outrageous, Mark, and thank you for bringing that up, because now that I'm not on the school board, I can let loose a little bit.
Yeah.
I am Mexican. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants. To do that at a school with 20% Latino students, and then the opponents that had come to play, the ones that got the tortillas hurled at, they were 90% Mexicans. So this was particularly outrageous. And some of the people who were, floating conspiracy theories, they were saying, well, he's an operative. It doesn't matter because he's Latino. Well, there's in a lot of societies that are mostly non-white, people who look more white, they're at the top of the heap. So that happens in a lot of Latino cultures. This particular gentleman was at the top of the heap, throwing tortillas at kids who were from migrant families. I later went to talk to them from Orange Glen.
Yeah.
They had also had racial incidents at their baseball games or basketball games. The kids started to cry. Yeah. So this is where it really gets difficult. It made national, international news. We had so many protests on both sides. But bottom line is, if it happened, we don't know what the intent was for real. But we do know you apologize. It was hurtful, and you move on. And as a conservative, on top of that, you want to partner with people and build bridges as well.
Right.
So, it just didn't serve anybody's interest to dispute the facts, get into the nitty-gritty. You just apologize and move on.
Yeah, but I also think, Esther, it speaks about something that's much deeper, that the racism that exists here in the United States, that is on the surface, you may not notice it so much, and then you'll see something like that. And now we're seeing this blatant racism against Jewish people. Right now, Israel's currently in a war, and they were attacked by a terrorist organization. They slaughtered, massacred 1,400 people, raped, drugged people in the streets. And ironically, when this is all going on and they go back to their Gaza and they're cheering, the people are cheering in the streets. They're happy. They're handing out candy. They're clapping. They think it's a big victory. Mm-hmm. So what's your thought about this underlying racism that we're seeing in education in the United States?
It goes back to a lot of liberal ideology. And by that, I mean that we have the white patriarchy, and they're using a lot of the BLM type of verbiage as well. Oh, the Israelis are now all of a sudden white. and they're seen as the occupiers. So we have to free Palestine. Let's go back historically, and I take a huge umbrage with that because I am a Christian, and this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values, meaning that we get part of our Bible from the Hebrew literature. We share that with the Jews. We share their tradition. We share their morality. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is also the God that we serve. So when you see people that are cheering for people who raped, beheaded children and dismembered pregnant women, we also rise up and say, hey, not only are we partners with the Jews, but they're also coming after us too. And I think Americans don't really realize that for the radical Islamic world, we're the great Satan. They're coming after us next. Israel's war is our war. America's survival depends on Israel winning that war. And I say that in the strongest terms, not only professionally as an immigration attorney, but personally too. Just like Joe Biden, who's a Democrat, said, we all have to be Zionists. We are Zionists. But you see, young people, they're being mobilized without knowing archaeologically, Israel belongs to Israel. That land was given to them by God. He has the title to it. He gave it to the Israelis. It's always been occupied by Israel. They were displaced by a Roman governor. They were dispersed throughout the world, and then they came back. The Palestinians were there. They occupied it. Hey, you have 39 other Islamic nations to go to. They don't want to go there. They insist on staying in the Jewish state. That's called war. That's a border dispute. But we know, at least as Christians, we know the Israelis will never be defeated. They will never be destroyed. They will be defended, and that land belongs to them.
Let's talk about the border, because you're an immigration attorney, and the border, I think, plays a big part of all this, because what we're seeing now, people claiming asylum, the regular people coming over, and that's fine. But it seems that the news is really trying to hide how many people are coming over, and if there are actual terrorists, because it seems like they're catching people on that terrorist list, how many of those people are actually coming in or maybe in? Because it's not a good time to have Hamas supporters and terrorists in this country.
Frank, I love that question because not only is it knowledgeable, but it's really acknowledging what is happening at the border and what the true context of our border conversation is. And I get really tired. I think when we met, we were at a political event, and people always like to, have slogans about, well, close the border. Every immigrant is a free person. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. What it really comes down to is border security. And what's happening in Israel right now impacts us because just last week, the San Diego Regional Border Patrol agents were issued a memorandum saying Hezbollah and jihad and radical Islamists are going to be triggered. They are going to want to enter our southern border. It definitely impacts us, especially knowing that under the Biden administration, we've had close to 8 million. And just capture that for a moment. That's 8 million migrants entering the United States to work here, to live here. Great. Who wants to deprive somebody of the opportunity, like our parents came to America for a better life? Nobody wants that. But what we should stay awakened is knowing that 169 terror suspects from watch list countries have also been apprehended. And who knows how many have not been apprehended. I think it's too little, too late. All we have to do right now is, as citizens, just acknowledge it, be on the lookout. If you see something, say something. Personally, I like to exercise my Second Amendment right to own guns and protect myself. Think about those poor Israelis who were at the kibbutz. The ones that survived were the ones who were armed. Those girls who defended themselves, they armed their neighbors. They weren't taken alive. They weren't raped. They weren't beheaded because they could defend themselves. I think we have to stop relying on the federal government and even our local government to represent us or defend us. They're not doing it at the border. Why would they do it at our homes?
Esther, really good point. And they can't do it mainly because we don't have enough police officers. No. We're down in every single department, whether it's San Diego PD or the Sheriff's Department, and their police officers are typically reactive. A crime will occur, and then they'll show up. And just recently, sadly, some mentally ill army person went into a bowling alley and a pool hall with a weapon, knew how to use it, and killed 18 people.
Mm-hmm.
So my fear is that if that was just one guy, can you imagine
slightly,
5 or 6?
Slightly trained. He's a National Guard instructor. He's
Right.
an arms instructor, but he wasn't a terrorist. You know what I
Right.
mean? So imagine the training they get, where they don't care where their bullets are. They have fully automatics. One person held 1,000 cops trying to look for this guy in the forest. There's FBI, there's ATF, there was local sheriffs and police officers, and they did a lockdown for one person. So it's kind of scary to think if there's 5 people or 10 people in a group that were highly trained in urban combat and terrorism, and one motivation is to kill as many people as you can and then go out in a blast to meet their God. It's kind of scary. I'd also like to, before we go into that whole terrorism thing, let's just talk about what I've been watching for years. And I'm an ex-lifeguard, and I used to do river rescues. So we'd go down to Tijuana. We have a river rescue team, and we'd rescue the people crossing that border. And what we're seeing now is the separation of parents and children and this whole sex trafficking thing. And then I heard there's another section where they take kids and they take their organs. Even worse, I don't know what's worse, but both of them are doomed. How are we stopping that, or what's the immigration doing for the cartel trafficking children and the whole sex trade?
We're really not stopping it. And that was the huge shift that happened with elections. Elections have consequences, right? When we transferred power from Trump to Biden, we also transferred immigration ideology, immigration philosophy, policy, that's what we call it. So ideologically, the Biden administration is saying, you know what? We're just going to administer, we're going to manage the flow. Border Patrol agents right now are being instructed to just logistically manage and administer, fill out paperwork, and process 8 million people to enter the United States. Really, they're not looking out for human trafficking. They stopped the DNA testing of adult males who were entering with children into the border saying and claiming, oh, this one's my daughter, and the children clearly are not related to this person, but the Biden administration cut out the DNA. So really that was the best weapon to be able to see if these children were child trafficked. I've been an immigration attorney for 20 years. I can't tell you how many times when I represent children, I've represented dozens of children, I separate them from the adult that brings them in. When the child is sitting in my office, I talk to them. I have coloring books, I have chocolate, I'm a female, I'm less aggressive maybe in their eyes and maybe talking to a male counterpart. They disclose to me all sorts of things, Frank. They tell me this person's not related to me. They tell me I have to work for my keep. It was a lie that I came here to study and build a better life. I'm sleeping 6 hours, 4 hours. I'm falling asleep at school. I do no homework. I'm paying for my food. I sleep in a sofa. There's 13 people in my apartments. You name it. These children are not here to build a better life and go to college and become a Nobel laureate. They're here to work and be trafficked and to be sold, send money home, and as slave labor. And, as a Latina, also of Mexican descent, I'm so offended that people don't care what's happening to these Latino children. They're coming here as new indentured servitude. Why are people up in arms?
They're slaves.
Absolutely.
Slavery.
We are becoming just second-class citizenry, just brought in to work here.
Esther, I have a question, Frank, before you ask this. Why does the Biden administration not secure the border? Like, what's like the end goal? What's the motivation behind this?
I don't belong to the Biden administration.
That was my question,
I
why
don't know.
this?
But we see this. I just came back from Europe. My husband's a UK citizen, and we see what's happening in Europe, in places like France, in places like the UK, where they're being overwhelmed by immigrants. And it's not the immigrant, it's the ideology that comes. It's the eradication of what was there before. They really don't care about the civil liberties or the Magna Carta. They're really not absorbing their culture. They're bringing in ideologies that are anti-feminist. They're anti- various types of multiple types of religions, traditions. They want what they want. And that's what we're seeing here as well. It's called globalism. I think overwhelmingly we're starting to see the erasure of borders, national sovereignty, meaning that nations won't matter after a while. You know, a nation's traditions won't matter. It's meant to be one huge economic system, one huge global system. And it sounds kind of conspiratorial, but we're seeing it. Nations are starting to not matter. And if you stand up and wave an American flag, you're all of a sudden a Christian nationalist and a terrorist, and all of a sudden on an FBI watch list. We saw when you and I think we were both on the school board, when the Attorney General of the United States said that parents coming in, Merrick Garland issued a letter saying that parents that were speaking up, they need to be watched by the FBI.
They were put on a terror watch list.
Right. So instead of focusing on the border, they're focusing on us as well for standing up for national rights. I think it's overall that's the trend that's moving forward. And a lot of college students, they buy into it because they think, why should America keep all the wealth? Let's spread the wealth. Let's let people from other countries in. Nothing wrong with that, but they're not absorbing our traditions and our religious values, and most of all, the democratic principles that made this country great.
Here's what I think's wrong with it. If you claim asylum from a country, there's a policy that was taken that Biden took out that says you can go to the first country of safety, not the second or third. So we're not the first. So when they leave, South America, and they come into Mexico, they cross that border. They're now in a safe. Isn't there a law that says you go to the first safe country for asylum is where you stay? So how are they bypassing the first one, the second one, then coming here, the third country?
They say they're not safe in any of the 7 countries. I've had migrants cross through 7 countries. From Venezuela, you got to go to Panama through the Darien Gap. You got to go through Honduras and Guatemala and Mexico, and then. But I want to be in America.
Out of the 8 million, how many of those people can we stop just by saying your asylum should have been honored in the first safe country that you're in? So we're not obligated to take asylum because you're not seeking asylum. You're already in Mexico.
Who's going to deport them all? Like going to Mark's point, we don't even have the manpower through
Well, forget
ICE
about deporting. How about just
them.
Stopping? Like right now, just put an end to it so at least you can go, okay, whatever. Whoever made it here, we'll figure it out.
That would be logical, right? Right at the border.
Yeah, at least stop it.
They don't want to because these immigration court cases.
Is it because of voting?
Immigration court cases take 5 to 10 years to process. So before they even get to asking them that question, they're here for 10 years.
Right,
they're raising children by that time. They already gave birth to a father to a U.S.
there's no
citizen.
solution?
No, there's a
is
solution.
Yeah.
So, Esther, you're on a school board, and so I want to talk about how much education plays into this. So we had something called critical race theory, which is just a theory. And the theory is there are oppressors and there are the oppressed. And in order for you to understand history of the United States, you have to understand that there are groups that are being oppressed, and the oppressors are typically white people. Those are the people. And in a lot of history, it was true that people were oppressed by certain populations of people. But if you go through history, you're going to see that. But here in the United States, the people that I see on the college campuses were not taught that in the Muslim countries, females are oppressed, gays are oppressed, people that have handicapping conditions are oppressed. So the college students that are marching in the streets are never taught that if you're a female and you're accusing someone of being raped, you need 5 witnesses to substantiate that. Or if you're gay, we're just going to throw you off of a building. But that's this big lack of education of how the ideology of these countries are, and that if you actually kill a Jew, that you're going to go to heaven, and we want you to kill Jews. Like that's our charter. It says it right in the Hamas charter.
Right, well, now we're talking about Hamas again, but like we say, most Muslims are peaceful people.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I have many beautiful Muslim friends. It's the radical. It's this huge thing it's almost like solid evil. I mean, you can't
jihad.
You can't jihad. You can't go and want to kill innocent people unarmed. Even in the Quran, it says you cannot kill unarmed civilians. And so what they did under yelling, Allah Akbar is contradicting to what they're supposed to honor.
But let me go back to the education. So I was I was against critical race theory because I don't think somebody should be told that because of the color of their skin or because of where they
they're
come
oppressors,
from,
right.
that they're being oppressed. It's
Right.
just it's like, hey, I can be whoever I want to be.
Right,
I live
right.
in America.
You're a racist.
But
It doesn't matter what.
But what allows people, college students, to go onto campuses and chant from the river to the sea to kill Jews, and is that you're an attorney? Is that protected speech to talk about killing people?
Well, as long as it's not an imminent threat, right? And they don't look like they're going to carry it out. But yes, they are threatening to annihilate Jews. But the critical race theory component that starts in public schools, it's so critical. I think we've all heard that this is what's happening in public schools right now. They're erasing American history. They just melted down Robert E. Lee's statue in Georgia. They melted it down. They're erasing our history,
Right.
painting us as the bad guys when historically this is what's happened wherever Islam has advanced. They've basically eradicated Christians and Jews as well. I've represented people, women, who have been the victims of female genital mutilation that happens in Islamic countries, where they sew their body parts tight to ensure their virginity for marital purposes or status. That is sheer torture and terror. Any kind of sexual contact afterward, whether it's legal with their husband, it's always painful. They're mutilated for life. And they do this to little girls as well. This happens, the torture and persecution of homosexuals as well, the torture and persecution of anybody who is considered an infidel. This is ideologically what we need to absorb as Americans, as San Diegans, what we're trying to fight. But people don't seem to care because now we've changed the vocabulary to the oppressor, the occupier, to the oppressed. It's communist Marxist ideology. That's what we're really fighting. And it's starting in our schools. It goes on to our colleges. And that's the next wave of Americans that's coming up. Unless we do our job, hand the baton and say, no, we're here to free people. It doesn't matter what race, what color you're from, whether you're of immigrant descent. It doesn't matter as long as you hold fast to these American beliefs. And it's really sad. But like I mentioned before, 10 days ago, I just returned from a trip to Europe. We were there 3 years. Like, these countries have fallen. Culturally, they've been overtaken. These countries are
European
overwhelmed.
countries?
European countries. I was in Italy. I was in the UK. And I don't mean because they have been racially replaced. I don't subscribe to that theory at all. What I mean is ideologically, they have no will to fight. And if we don't find that here in America, not only are Jewish people going to suffer first, we're already seeing the anti-Semitist attacks in West Hollywood, in Chicago. Yesterday, somebody ran into the Chicago airport looking and attacking Jews and looking for them. They're hunting them down. But also, like I mentioned, as Christians, we stand in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people as well. They consider us as infidels too. And that's something that doesn't bode well for America as well. You know, just that we're losing the fight, the will to fight.
Okay, so here's my biggest complaint, and it's so crazy. When we first started this podcast, you said, if you see something, say something. Well, we're seeing Jews being hunted down right now. We're seeing these huge riots. We're seeing people protesting, saying gas to Jews. We're seeing Jews are not welcome. So we're seeing something, and we're saying something. What happens after that?
Well, a lot of it has to do with politics. And I love politics. I know you guys too, and we're going to talk about politics. I think what happens is that a lot of the liberal left, they're having a really hard time with a concept called intersectionality. They all subscribe to the George Floyd protests saying, oh, you know, just the blacks have been oppressed. Yes, they absolutely have. They've been mistreated. They've been wrongfully racially profiled in the past. As realtors, you know about racial covenants as well, historically, what's happened in this country. Yes, we all understand that. But intersectionality means that you defend any type of oppressed person, whether they're gay, whether because of their religion, and whether they're non-white. Now that there's anti-Semitism, there's no intersectionality with Jews.
Right.
I hope you understand this. Nobody's standing up for the Jewish people right now. Yes, they're reporting things, but now all the liberal left is quiet. You saw BLM on their website. They had the parachutists on their website. They were celebrating it.
Right.
They were condoning it. A lot of the liberal left is quiet. Even some of our Jewish leaders here in San Diego
Right.
and nationally, they're having a really hard time even condemning the rape and murder of innocent people because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Right.
I can't really stand for you guys because you're oppressed.
May want to take a better look at their own party that they're representing.
It's all
because-
self-interest.
Yeah.
It's all self-interest. You
found-
want to win a politics. You want to
Right.
win a campaign. You want to kowtow to an
Right.
electorate. And you want the funds to be able to win, so you just stay quiet.
Right.
That is complicity with massacre, with genocide. And like I always like to mention, I just finished a book manuscript on this. The word genocide was invented because it didn't exist before World War II. Somebody had to describe what was happening to Jews because of their race, because of their very essence of humanity. They had to come up with a word to describe the annihilation of a whole race of people, and that's what we're fighting. I think we're denying ourselves the fact that this is what we're fighting. We're again at a 9/11 times 10, and I think
Right.
we're looking at some terror attacks here on our mainland as well. Sporadic, simultaneous, at
Right.
various times. It's imminent.
You know,
Yeah,
a lot of the college students that are protesting, they weren't even born
Right.
when 9/11 happened,
Right.
and they didn't understand that it was Islamic extremists
Right.
who decided that they were going to crash airplanes, and they're not done.
Right.
That
No,
was just
that's a warm up.
that was a beginning. Yeah.
Right. So right now, if you have, I mean, how many tens of thousands of potential terrorists in our country? If 8 million came, I mean, take any percentage of that, it's a big number. Like I said, you saw what one person can do in Maine. You know, going to 2 different places and shooting 18 and killing, wounding 23 others. That's one person. They're protesting. They're saying they're pissed. They're anti-American. They're burning our flags. They're saying death to the Jews, death to Israel. At what point does it take for at least the Jewish people to go like, hey, we have some protection? Because it seems like, yeah, it's just a peaceful protest.
You know, can you imagine if one of the Indian reservations, whichever one it was, said, you know, you guys were 13 colonies, you're colonialists, you
Yeah.
took our land,
Yeah.
and we want it back. And they start firing missiles repeatedly into Santee.
Right.
Like every other day,
Right.
they're firing missiles
Yeah, 10
into
to-
residential neighborhoods. Like
Right.
there's no guidance on this.
Right.
What would the response be from the United States?
Yeah, they'd smoke them.
In like
It'd be
2
done.
seconds. Yet the United States feels that Israel should be able to take incoming missiles on a regular basis and just go, yeah, you know, you guys get a few missiles. It doesn't work that
Well,
way.
even Israel is allowing. It seems like they're allowing a certain amount of missiles to come in because most of them don't hit. You know, it hasn't hit something big, but tens of thousands of missiles coming over your border, being lobbed in on every side, where these people are living in their bunkers every day, and the kids are living. They're subterranean humans now. When they come out, they may be attacked. So, at what point do you go, hey? You know, at first it's going to be Israel. We know that.
Right.
You know, they're going to attack Israel. But they're anti-American. They're other Muslims who live here. They're anti-them because they're infidels as well. Any
Correct.
Muslim that lives here is siding with the Americans, so they kill other Muslims as well. At what point does the globe have to go like enough is enough? Like we got to get rid of this. We're not cavemen anymore.
I think people want war. I think
You think
there's
people
a
want more?
huge
Yeah.
war industry right
Yeah.
now that's being mobilized. We saw it in Russia, Ukraine. It's not as simple as just a border dispute
Right.
between Israel and Gaza. And basically, Hamas has taken over the Palestinian people. Nobody
And they have 'em
faults
at
the
hostage.
innocent Palestinian people,
Right.
the men, the women there. Unfortunately, their government is holding them hostage, and they're terrorizing not just Israel, but they're threatening to terrorize the United States as well.
Has anyone talked to the citizens there? Because I'd really like to have, I'd like to see some cameras interview the people, the Palestinians, to see if what you're saying is actually true. Are they too scared to say like, hey, we want to be here, but if I say anything about Hamas, we're dead. So I'm just gonna keep going like we love Hamas. I mean, what's the real truth? Do they really support Hamas, or do they want to live free without Hamas?
I think they're
in
under
2 states.
threat. I don't know how they get away with just saying that they don't support Hamas because they keep, from the time that they're children, they're taught to hate Jews, hate Americans, hate infidels,
Right.
and to die defending their religion. I don't know how you quell that, and that's what we're fighting here locally at the border. It's not that we want to screen people racially, but we have to screen them. What kind of ideas are you bringing here? And we already do that in immigration law. We screen if you're a Nazi, if you're a communist, if you want to overthrow our constitutional rights or our government as well. We need to start screening for that too. But of course, how many people are going to be forthcoming with that?
Of course, none of them.
Well, you have 8 million backlogged.
Right,
Since you're already
exactly. It's
here,
like, I'm just here for asylum. What are they going to tell you? I'm a terrorist, and I was hired to come over here
And
to
that's
set
how all
up
the
a...
terrorists came
no.
in, right, through
Right.
To England, to places like
Yeah,
France.
they just walked-
I want a
walked.
warm bowl of soup and a blanket. I'm
Right.
being threatened back there, and then they
Right.
turn
That's it.
on their host country.
Right.
This is what's happening.
Yeah, there's
as
no
well.
assimilation
Here.
anymore.
It's like at the airport. Before 9/11, you would go to the airport and they go, do you have any weapons or anything in your suitcase? No. Did anybody pack your suitcase other than yourself? No. Did it ever leave your sight? No. You can go on.
Right.
That was their screening.
Right.
Like the guys that are going to say something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hiding all sorts of stuff from my... Please don't search me. It's ridiculous, but it seems like common sense should prevail over bad policy. It doesn't matter what the lefts are saying or BLM is saying
It's
or anyone's
not
saying.
common
It's like,
sense anymore. It's
Right.
all
It's like
political
we have a-
ideology.
all these people that say we don't need borders or walls. Well, first of all, you saw what happened, January 6th, the insurrection. Well, what did they do after that? They build a big fence around the whole, they build a fence. They build a wall. You have all these people like, Italy, the Pope who just said something. It's like, excuse me, Pope, you have a wall around your whole country, and it's a huge wall. If you don't take down your wall, and the White House doesn't take down their wall, and people don't take down their fences and borders on their own property, it's ridiculous. You need to have some type of border.
We don't realize the magnitude of the interest from the left and a lot of pro-immigration advocates. They want America to fail. There's no love for America. They don't want America to continue with the white Christian, Judeo-Christian values and the patriarchy.
Right.
We want to overthrow it because we hate it, because we're envious of it, because we want to take it over. Why should they have the best territory, the best everything? We want it too. And we know historically this is what happened to Rome. Rome in 406 AD, their walls had been fortified for over 1,000 years. They were overtaken. They were breached on that year by mass migrant caravans that came from the north. The Germanic tribes came down. They said, we want what Rome has. We heard about the Colosseums. They got bread. They got circus. They got fun. And I'm living in the back Hinterwoods. No more. I'm going to go down to Rome. And they sacked it.
Right.
And the Romans were stunned. And the border patrol of their time had been telling them, they're coming. They're coming. We can't stop them. There were watchmen on the wall. I went to Hadrian's Wall. They had garrisons. They're watching them come. They got overwhelmed. We're living that. But Rome withstood that. And then there were subsequent, for 2 decades, there were waves upon waves of migrant caravans coming in, until after 2 decades of those waves, they couldn't withstand it anymore. We're living that, and not to sound totally dismal, I don't see it all totally negative, but this is historically what happens to nations when they're occupied with circus and bread, and that's what the Roman governors did to the Roman citizens. They said, give them circus, give them bread, have the gladiatorial theater. Everybody's really worried about Taylor Swift's new relationship and her movie right now. We don't have time for this border talk and this Israeli-Gaza thing. And Matthew Perry just drowned in his jacuzzi. Let's talk about that for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know what you watch on TV, and Frank, you and I talk about this. They go, "Hey, we don't want to enter World War III. We're worried. We're in World War III.
Right. I mean,
It started. Like,
what else is it going to take?
Guys, get prepared, and don't think that America is immune from being invaded.
Right.
That's like a
exactly.
big fallacy.
Right. That's
Like
just
we're not immune to
That's
anything.
like 9/10. Oh, they're not going to hurt
Nah.
us. They have nothing on us.
They
What
won't
are they
come-
going to do?
What are they going to come up from the border? of
Imagine
Canada?
imagine if you saw that and you go, hey, listen, I just got word that these guys are going to fly these jets tomorrow into the Twin Towers, and the Twin Towers are both going to fall. who would do anything about it?
So do you guys believe that the Israeli government knew or stood down? How did they not know? How did the Iron Shield not
They said
not
it was
work?
a complete intelligence failure.
Well,
Just that day.
Yeah, just that day. Yeah, what is up with that?
They didn't see the paragliders floating in.
Right, and practicing.
Right, and practicing and amassing
I don't know.
by their
That's
border.
what I want to know about.
Is that a little weird that the
is
Egyptian
weird.
government's like, we told you guys before, like, why didn't you fortify?
I don't know.
Right.
I just know that I can't see that they would allow that all those people to be slaughtered like that. It would
Right.
I
just
don't want to
be-
think it, but it's a huge intelligence failure to not know all of this
Yeah, it was-
going on right across your border. And could it happen in America with paragliders
Oh, well,
coming in
I
through
think that
San
Gaza
Diego?
border is the most secure border in the world.
Correct.
If you ever go to Israel, they'll tell you if you ever want to meet an IDF person, just touch the fence, and they'll come because everything is censored and there's cameras. And on that day, what happened? I want to know exactly what happened and where was that failure because there was no response for hours. For hours.
Well, that's what the prime minister said. He goes, "This was a complete intelligence failure." Like
Yeah,
you guys
well, it
didn't
was.
do." And so, look, 9/11 was a complete intelligence failure. They had red flags everywhere.
Right, you can't cover.
Hey, there are
there's
these
so
guys.
many.
They're just taking off. They only want to learn how to take off in airplanes, and they were right here in San Diego. They were living off in Claremont,
Right.
just
17
hanging out.
of the 19 hijackers came in through our exploited our immigration system. That's what we're looking at. That's what the Border Patrol is alerting the U.S. government. And the U.S. government right now is largely preoccupied with the Biden impeachment, with the laptop, with the Speaker of the
Right.
House. Let's get to this. This is about national survival and Israeli survival as well, because we're their
Which is
largest
same.
ally as well.
I don't believe America's just sitting back. I think that there are such high-level meetings right now, and then maybe they're putting smoke and mirrors in the media because they got some big plans. I don't think they're going to telegraph exactly what's going on. I think they're getting serious and going, deep
Well, they're
stealth.
serious enough to put the bunch of aircraft carriers.
I know when you start seeing all the aircraft carriers go everywhere and deploy, both on the Mediterranean on both sides, I don't think they're there for a little piece of land called the Gaza. You know what I mean? So you have to go what's the big picture?
The big picture is that Hezbollah is backed by Iran.
Right.
That Syria is backed by Russia. There's it's a Cold War right now.
Right.
It's being played
getting
by
hotter.
surrogates
I think
as
it's a
well.
warm war.
Israel's being backed by U.S. China's also interested in moving in as well. I mean, it's a huge geopolitical scene right now. Whether it's World War III. We don't know, but down here at our level, what can we do but, get prepared, watch, ask our local leaders to defend our border as well, and to keep speaking and talking. And I love you guys' podcast because you're informing people who maybe, they want to listen about something fun, but you're also like, hey, pay attention to this. This is our backyard. And my namesake, Esther, in the book of Esther in the Bible, one of my favorite verses, it says, don't think that you and your house are safe because you live in the palace. It's also going to touch you, the annihilation of the Jews, when they were asking Esther to stand up for the Jewish people because she was safe in the palace.
Yes.
And I think this is that moment for a lot of people. It's like, don't think you're going to be safe in La Jolla and Rancho Santa Fe and West Hollywood, wherever you are. It's going to touch all of us, and it's a matter of national importance. But for most politicians, it's just, fundraising time and gearing up for the 2024 elections.
So don't you think that if you're a country and you know that 30 of your citizens were just slaughtered, and then 19 more are being held captive as a hostage with a terror organization, why isn't it America going, hey, we're going in? Like, use your battleships, use your military, use your airplanes.
I think they are in. I think you just don't know everything. I believe that there are teams in Israel from America working on that hostage thing.
I think there's a reason why they delayed that ground invasion,
exactly.
too.
There's a reason why they lined them all up. They're getting set up.
Yep.
This is a war that we haven't seen before. It is when Israel fought all the previous wars, they got kind of lucky on a few sides. There wasn't communications. Not everyone had a good, strong army. Currently, all these countries around them have enough arms and enough, intelligence to do serious damage to Israel.
I think that they should say, you killed 30 of our people.
What do you mean 30?
The U.S. Israelis.
The U.S.
that are
United
US
States
citizens.
say
gotcha.
you, Hamas, killed
Right.
30 of our people, and you're holding 19 more.
Yeah.
We are coming in with our military, and we're going to decimate you and use whatever means. If they need to drop some of those bunker busters that they dropped in Afghanistan, like your things are 100 feet in the ground, our bombs go 200 feet in the ground.
Right.
And tell those people in Gaza, get out of that area because we're dropping one and we're going to decimate you.
Why can't we get the
That's what they should say.
Yeah,
like,
why
not
can't
just be covert about it. Oh, we're kind of.
Why don't the other countries take the people from Gaza, the Palestinians, just for a while?
Yeah,
You
no
know,
one
like-
takes
like-
them. Why
like-
Jordan, Syria,
Yeah,
Egypt?
it would seem like, hey,
It's
listen.
strategic, right? If you're an Arab country, you also, if you're a radical Islamic country, I should correct myself, you want that thorn in the side for Israel.
right.
You want to be right next to your neighbor, and anytime there's a provocation, you want to be able to be best situated to strategize and threaten who you hate. You want to keep it there. Of course, they're not going to keep them.
It just seems like the logical thing to do is like, listen, nobody wants to kill kids and children.
No.
Nobody.
No.
Nobody wants to see Palestinian kids
No.
and a bomb. I don't. I'm all about keeping the innocent people innocent and
Absolutely.
safe. We have to protect them. So there should be, if there is a potential ceasefire, allow anyone who wants out of there even to go the other way and have Israel accept them and say, hey, listen, we want peace. We're just trying to get rid of Hamas. Now, we will live together. We'll live in 2 states or just all live together. Let's get you people out here. We can support you in Israel until we're done with this. But you cannot be under the arm of Hamas because their only purpose is to eliminate Israel and kill Jews. And they'll start with Jews. They're not just not Jews, it's infidels. I mean, it's infidels.
Yeah. Right.
So anyone who doesn't believe in exactly what they believe and they want to, die and sacrifice are going to be killed. So everyone else thinks the Jews are always a problem. They got all the money. They got all the power. Let's get rid of the Jews. Let's just say they're all gone. Do you think they're going to stop there? Of course not. They have an Islamic jihad. They want to take over the whole world.
Absolutely.
So I mean, the Christians have no chance.
A global
the Christians,
caliphate where they stopped,
Right.
from taking in the Battle of Tours. They were about to take over all of Europe, and that's where you forget that other half of the Crusades. All you hear about is the massacres. But
Right.
what were the Christian Crusaders doing? They were pushing them back from enslaving women. They were already taking white slaves, white women. They were encroaching in places like the UK and Ireland, taking people back as hostages and slaves. It's a global type of caliphate that they eventually want, and unless we get our act together, like you said,
Right.
Either get some kind of solution or peace solution, which I believe, we'll never see, because a 2-state solution really is just we're going to keep it there for a while, but we're eventually going to annihilate Israel.
Right, exactly. No,
That's
I know what you
always
mean.
the end goal.
Yeah, the Palestinians they feel like Israel shouldn't be there, and they want to come and take their land. And
Even though the Israelis were there for thousands
yeah, even though
of years,
if you
for
want to go back,
4,000
yeah,
years.
if you want to go in history and really read the Bible, any one of the Bibles, any one of them, the Jewish people, that's their land.
Absolutely.
And they can erase history like 2,000 years ago, but if they want to go by the real occupants, that was given from God. This isn't every Bible that you can read.
Archaeologically, I went
Yeah.
to the British Museum. There's archaeological artifacts. The Israelis have been there.
Yeah, and
You
so
know, what I find that's going to be very ironic, because those people that are holding flags and saying free Palestinians,
Right.
I agree, free them. But the people that are going to free the Palestinians are the Jews, because they're going to go
Right.
in there and they're going to get rid of that
That's exactly
terror
right.
grip.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird that you're saying free Palestine, destroy Israel. The Israeli army
the
is going in
Israelis
there.
are the only ones going in there to defeat Hamas.
Right, and so
Who else is helping them?
and then they can work out their geopolitical things,
Right.
how they're going to separate it. But you can't have
Because it's all a bunch of lies. Okay, let's just figure it out. They don't want to eliminate Hamas. The other
Right.
Arab countries are putting them there. The proxy
Right.
wars, they're feeding them. I mean, all that money that it seems like Palestine could have been another gold mine. It could be like Israel.
Absolutely.
And you always look and you go like, all this money that we're giving them, the Americans are giving them, where's it going? Because you don't see any new structures, you don't see any schools, you don't
Well,
see any
there's
hotels.
300 miles of tunnels
Right,
that
but
they're
if you,
discovering.
exactly
That's where it all
what
went.
they're doing, they're buying weapons and tunnels, and so we're funding the war against us.
Well, speaking of weapons and tunnels,
Crazy.
Don't be surprised if there's not a lot of networks of tunnels just coming in the United States. Except, the
Right.
cartel aren't trying to. They're just trying. They're doing business. That's their job. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we got to get these drugs in here. We're going to get them in here, however,
Right.
But they're not coming in here and slaughtering people, and
Right.
like they're not ruthless psychopaths. They're like, hey, we got a business, and
Right. Some of them
And
are.
getting into politics a little bit, 2024, I'm a number one proponent for the Republican Party courting the Latino vote and the Hispanic vote precisely because of that. We also have a Christian religion. 98% of Latinos are Christian. They're Roman Catholic, they're evangelical. They don't want to destroy America. We've never come in claiming that we want to overthrow the government. We come in here to work. We're a natural defender of this country. We want to live here. We want to work here. And if the United States wants an ally from their immigrant population, it is the Latino immigrant.
Right.
Because not only do we understand that we want to live here in the United States, but also our religion is at threat too. Because again, it's not just the Jews, it's the infidel, the people of the cross, so to speak.
You know what's funny? Here's a notification to the American Jews that are in the Democratic Party. You're on the wrong team. Like, I'm not asking you to become Republicans,
Right.
but it's your team, your party,
Right.
that has all the anti-Semitic people on there. It's your
Right.
party
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
voting against
Anti-Israel,
Israel.
saying apartheid,
If
I
you're still going to be a Democrat and you're Jewish,
Yeah.
you're part of the problem.
Right.
You're not part of the solution.
They're equivocating. Some of them, they're having a hard time because a lot of their base is so ideologically left that they can't condemn Hamas. But I find it so interesting also in conservative circles. They also don't want, a lot of them don't want Israel to defend themselves. They're like, ceasefire. Oh, it's so aggressive. It's not proportionate to what happened.
Right.
How do you apportion the rape of a child whose pelvis was broken because they were multiply raped? How do you limit a bomb, to just be the direct
It's so
proportional
disgusting.
impact
Yeah.
of a beheading?
How could
This
how
is
could
outrageous.
any Muslim support people like that? How can anyone in the world support anything that they did?
I don't
mean, they
think they do.
slaughtered
Again,
slaughtered
they're the-
unarmed human beings. The worst case scenario. They lit children and adults on fire. They slaughtered them. There was no weapons. Everyone thinks people have weapons in Israel. They don't. They have very, very strict gun laws. The citizens are not armed, okay? They have a few reserves that have arms, and they have places where we can go that they have them all locked up in case something happens, and then they have the IDF. But the average citizen is just there peacefully doing nothing, and they were completely slaughtered, begging for their lives. They had no way out, the worst conditions. How can anyone have a flag of a paratrooper coming in? And yeah, if you're a Democrat and you're Jewish and you're supporting this, shame on you.
Well, it's supporting your annihilation, your survival as a
Right.
people. And I love Mark Twain's quote on this. It's like, the Jew alone is immortal. You will always exist. God has chosen you as a people, and I say that with all respect as a longtime admirer, not just of the traditions, the culture, the work ethic, the values. I was at the Museum of the Holocaust in Washington, D.C. I mean, people need to see that. That's part of our national history as well. But to be supporting the Democratic Party right now as a Jew and to give money to liberal institutions like Harvard, like Stanford, that are promoting these ideologies that want to annihilate you as a race, I think it's like a identity crisis now. And I even read this great article written by a Jewish author saying, I went to bed as a liberal and I woke up the next day as a conservative. Because a Second Amendment conservative, whether you like it or not, separate yourself from Trump. You don't have to absorb Trump. But the values that allow you to survive and defend yourself are found on the conservative side. The people who want you to survive, who want you to thrive, are on the Republican side of the aisle.
Right.
We're rooting for you. Yesterday, I was at church and we were praying for the 291 hostages. We were praying for those babies. There's a 5-month-old baby. We were praying for the troops that are going in, the IDF elite troops. And for you guys, because we see the rise of anti-Semitism, and the famous quote is, ask not whom the bell tolls for, it tolls for you. You know, they're coming for us next as well.
If they want to cease fire, why don't they just release the hostages?
You know why they don't like the Christians also is because Jesus was born Jewish.
Right.
So he's on their hit list. Anybody who practices what Christianity is essentially in their eyes practicing Judaism, like, because the founder was born a Jew. I mean, of course he's born a Jew. That's all they had there. It was like there's no real other option there.
Right.
But I can see how they make that connection.
Well, here's a connection. The reason why they wipe out the Christians is because the Jews and the Arabs historically were butting heads. And the Arabs go, you got to be born, you're a Muslim, if the dad's a Muslim, and the Jews have their own, if your mom's a Jew, you're a Jew. And they respectively hated each other. You know, like, I don't want to be, and you don't want to be me. The Christians come in there and they try to recruit Muslims into being Christians. And that's why the radical Muslims dislike the Christians, because they always go somewhere else to try to recruit.
Part.
Right.
Yes.
So they want to, they're on a mission to recruit, and they're saying, hey, don't come to my country and recruit anything or we're going to kill you. And so that's how much they don't like it. Like, if you even go there. So first it's going to be the Jews, and then it's going to be the Christians, and then it's going to be the Catholics, and it's going to be everybody else. There's many religions.
Well, because we believe as evangelical Christians, I'm not Roman Catholic, I'm evangelical Christian. When you share the gospel, you're sharing freedom. We have a verse that says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. We're sharing something that's going to free women, free even homosexuals, free children, free education. A lot, like I mentioned, Judeo-Christian values are steeped in tolerance, in liberalism, in liberal thoughts, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Everything that's enshrined in the Constitution was first enshrined in the 10 Commandments from Moses, handed on down, handed to Christians through adoption as well. That's what we believe, but that's why the hate as well, the animosity as well, because we like to share that. We go into Muslim countries and share that gospel to free and rise up cultures. Look at Christian cultures, Christian civilizations. Women are free, women drive, I have a business.
Right.
I could never have a business and have employees and live the life that I did as a single mom for 22 years and not be stoned to death.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
that's why they come here, because they, like you said, most Islamic people, they want those values as well, but they make it impossible. And I do believe if Israel will be victorious in defeating Hamas there, they're going to free the Palestinian people to be able to not be the puppets of Iran or Russia.
I think Israel's job, maybe through God, but Israel's job right now is to free the Palestinians, because they understand they're under duress from the Hamas.
But if you look at the actual history of the Palestinians, if you go back centuries ago, when Israel was labeled a country called Palestine, that was like a territory, be like El Cajon or La Mesa. The people that lived there were Syrian and Jordanian.
They're Arabs.
And they're Arabs. They occupied this area. They're not Palestinian. That's like saying I'm San Diegan.
Right.
Well, that was the name given by the Roman emperor when he destroyed Jerusalem. He said, I'm going to eradicate the name of Jerusalem and eradicate the name of Israel, and I'm going to name it Palestine. But in fact, they are of Arab descent.
Correct.
So again, there's 39 other Arab Islamic nations where they could go. There's only one Jewish state where the Jews can go back to because it was their land.
But they won't let them in. I mean, even Egypt won't let them in.
Yeah, well, Egypt, stopped them from letting them in. It's so bad.
I think you're right,
over there.
though, Frank. I think you should say, women and children, we're open to have a trail. You can come into Israel.
Right. Israel should accept them. Israel should say, hey, listen, we're going to get rid of Hamas.
Hamas is
we have to do
blocking
everything.
the exit of the civilians.
Well,
they're
going to take care of that. Okay, so open that up, whatever you have to do. Go in there and kill all of them, or some of them. but have an exit where if Egypt doesn't want to take them, I feel it's weird that Egypt and the other Arab countries won't take other Arabs. I don't know.
Jordan, Syria.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I don't know why, and people don't talk about it. But it seems like, if Israel's going to go in there and liberate Palestinians, allow the Palestinian women and children to come and seek refuge in Israel, and just organize it. Let us go in. We're going to get rid of the tunnels. We're going to go to Hamas. We're going to establish a country that you can be proud of.
That would
and then
be
we could talk.
Yeah.
And it seems like that should be globally accepted. Like, does anyone, unless underneath all this smoke and mirrors, nobody wants that. They just want to get rid of Israel, and they want to support the terrorist groups. Like, we're not sure which side people are on right now.
We don't want to believe that, but that's looking
Yeah,
like
we don't
the
want to believe it,
scenario.
but, the anti-Semitism, all of a sudden it went from 14 slaughtered people to let's chase Jews down and hunt them down and kill them in different countries. It's happening all over. There's riots right now happening all over. Anti-Jew. It's not because they hide behind this crap about we are anti-Zionist, which means we don't agree with the policies of Israel. Bullshit. You don't like Jews.
Who has
and you
been
want to get rid
hunted
of them.
down for millennia? It's been
Yeah,
the Jews,
Jews.
through the pogroms, through
But the
the
Jews
Holocaust.
a lot of the Jews, especially on the Democratic side, I'll go a little bit political, are the ones that are the attorneys that sponsor them in court. Like, they represent the people who are trying to kill them.
Yes. Please explain this to me.
How do
I
you-
don't
can't.
know. I'm here to learn.
I don't know.
Why are
It's mind-boggling to
It's
me,
mind-boggling
too. I'm like,
that-
why
that-
would you do that?
Yeah,
why do you
the
want
Jews,
to sponsor your hate groups?
right? You want to
You
sponsor?
understand? They're treating
So we're
Hamas terrorists that were injured in this attack in Jewish hospitals.
Right.
In the same hospitals, they're treating the
Right.
victims
Right.
of the attack.
right.
And
yeah,
they go,
you don't
no.
hear about that. So
We're
in
gonna-
Jerusalem and Israel,
Like-
the terrorists that have killed or want to kill Israelis, if they get injured and they get past that border and they go into a Jewish hospital, the doctors operate on them just like any other human.
Because of the culture of sanctity of life. That's part of your
how
culture.
can you not see the goodness?
And they have a
in
culture
Israel?
of death.
Right.
Right.
If you go there, if you're an injured Israeli, even a dead Israeli, they still cut your head off. Like, you're a dead soldier. Leave the soldier alone. It's a corpse. And they still cut
Desecrate
the
the
head off
body.
and desecrate. And they light them on fire.
Well, they just found the
Cannot-
body of that young girl who was one of the festival goers. They
Yeah.
just found it this morning, beheaded.
Yeah.
Beheaded.
So
they found
sad.
her skull.
How
That's
are you
what
gonna,
they're doing.
How are you going to ever deal with people
Yeah,
like
and you're
this?
and you're worried
How do you
about
support a political party
Right.
that can't get itself to condemn? There was silence.
Right.
If you stay silent at a moment like this,
Right.
it's like aiding and abetting Israel's enemies.
Yeah, we
You
have
can't
have
stay
enemies
silent.
within the Congress. Like, are people
The
not
squad.
the squad? Are people not watching them, going like, they're anti-Israel, and they're pro-Hamas.
They're
But if you
anti-American.
notice, Biden's
Yeah, they're
very shrewd
anti-Americans.
right now. He's definitely taking a pro-Israel
Yes,
stance
yes.
to court the Jewish donors, and he's taking on a lot of the pro-Palestinian side of his party as
Trying
well.
to play both sides so they can win the
Trying
next.
to play
It's
both
all elections.
sides.
It's all about the
Absolutely.
election.
You know what? Another thing
So
that I
sad.
found out about this is that these terrorists are taking a drug called Capitan.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
and
anyway,
this
it's like
drug, what it is like it's crystal meth.
Steroids and speed.
It's like crystal and some other type of hallucinogen, and they pop these pills. This is what happened. The Nazis in Germany
Right.
were on crystal. And you should even see, like in some of the videos you see of Hitler, you can totally see him tweaking in the audience. Like
Yeah.
he was doing the same thing. So these guys are psychotic, drug-using tweakers on whatever psychedelic drugs that they take, and they go in there and they
And you don't feel pain. You get shot.
don't
You
feel
keep
anything.
going. They
They
just want to
just
go.
keep-
And how is that a Muslim?
yeah.
Well, and that's the nature of what we're dealing with. I mean, we don't like to talk about religion in polite circles and in politics, but this is the nature. I firmly believe it's spiritual, it's demonic, and that's the essence of it. They're taken over just spiritually through these pharmaceuticals, and they're able to do supernatural, toxic, evil acts. That's why so many of our troops, when they went into Iraq, and I love you need to read American Sniper if you never read it. Like one of the reasons why so many of our troops came back with PTSD, it was the essence of evil. They were staring evil in the face. And if you don't believe people are evil, you have to be able to see some of those videos that the Hamas captured of what they were doing on live shots. They were live streaming what they were doing.
They were live streaming on the victims' phones.
It's spiritual.
Why don't they play those videos?
I think some of the reporters, because I watch them on the news.
Yeah, they get shell shocked.
They watch those videos.
Yeah, they're different.
And I think they're not. It affected them.
Oh, huge!
Like they got like some PTSD. They probably wish they could unsee those
Yeah,
images.
I saw this one guy interviewing after he saw those, and you could see the whites on the bottom of his pupil and on the type. It was like it changed him.
Yeah.
And he was trying to talk about it, but he couldn't even talk about it. Now, here's what I was going to say. If you really want to know what happened that day, it's let the unedited versions of the videos be watched, or at least be out there. Then you could see what we're really talking about, because people cannot comprehend that type of violence.
Well, people are suppressing the truth. They're suppressing all of it in order to be able to foment this ceasefire two-state solution, which is really code speak for the annihilation of Israel. You know, any kind of two-state solution is really all about the annihilation of Israel. You know, so they don't want those videos to be shown. But also, I think for a lot of Jews and Democratic supporters as well, you want to turn away, because fundamentally, if you look at the liberal ideology, it's about people are fundamentally good. And when you see a video like that, you see people are fundamentally evil. They're capable of huge amounts of evil. That's where you get the Holocaust deniers, because they're like, no, I believe everybody has a warm spot. They're wonderful people. And that really forces you to be able to change your dialectic, what you've always thought about people, and say, you know what, I got to protect myself. That Jewish family that were raided in North Hollywood during the night by somebody who was yelling Allahu Akbar, who was found with a knife last week. Look it up. The dad of the family, they had Jewish insignia at the front of their door. So they knew that they were Jewish, and somebody entered the porch door and wanted to kill the family. That's what we're really facing. It's fundamentally evil. It's not just politics at this point.
So
it's not a border dispute.
I talked to a lot of Jewish people, and it's time for them to get prepared to have to defend themselves. You cannot hide behind a law book in this situation. You can't sue somebody. You know, you have to step it up. So Jews are being hunted down. They're going to be. You know, and we could see it. I don't have to wait. It's already happening. Like, so here am I. I see something. I'm going to say something. Jews better be prepared to defend themselves and their family. They have to do it. Do not rely on a 911. Do not rely on anything, because this stuff happens quick. It happens immediate, and you will be caught off guard. So it's obvious that you're being basically hunted right now. Things are not looking good for you. And we're going right back to Germany, 1937. So this time, if you say never again, you better fight for those words. So be prepared.
And we're seeing how World War II happened. Every time we watch Schindler's List, we're like, how did all those Germans
Oh, yeah,
let
that was
it
so
happen?
long ago. That
How
could
did
never
it
happen again.
And it's like people just didn't care. They went on with their lives. They're watching the white smoke coming out of the factories. They're like, oh, well, let's go shopping right now.
That's just so true.
This is what's happening. We're living in that moment. My middle name is Ruth. I'm named after two of the books of the Jewish literature named after the Bible, Esther, Ruth. And I always go back to those books, you know, just when I need some inspiration, just thinking these were people that took their survival in their own hands, you know, and when all else fails, you know, God, you're people of God, you know, God's chosen people. We get to pray and ask God, and God's committed to defending you, to protecting you, to being a shield. He said, my habitation is Zion. And spiritually, I believe that's the fight that we're seeing. We're seeing good versus evil fighting over Jerusalem. That's what they want to take. They want to take Jerusalem.
So what do you do about the border? So let's go back. Cause you're, go ahead, Mark.
I have a question for Esther. So, and it's exactly on the same lines that you're saying. So all these people are coming across the border illegally.
Right.
Do you get any customers that want to do it legally?
All the time. That's who I represent. They all want to use a legal pathway to be able to come here. And of course, most of them have a legal pathway. That's why they hire an attorney. And that's my job, to be able to represent them, to be able to go through a family petition, through asylum, through refugee. But what I'm seeing, and when we talk about the asylum loophole, is that what we're seeing right now, these 7 to 8 million, they don't qualify for asylum because they're economic migrants, meaning they're just here to work. And they freely tell you people, and they freely tell the border agents, hey, I'm here to work, I'm here for a better opportunity. Asylum is only if you're tortured, persecuted on account of your race, your religion. Think World War II, all the Jews that came over here seeking asylum. That's what it was meant for. It wasn't meant for a job program or a helping a third world country program. But they don't qualify. But because it takes 5 to 10 years for that case to go through immigration court, they get to live here, work here, and they release them, and they get to stay here.
So what happens after 10 years?
They stay here. There's nobody here to deport them.
Right.
It
Nothing
doesn't
happens.
matter if you lose your case. Nothing happens.
So, if I was them, I'd be walking across that border too.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to walk across the border. You get escorted onto a bus. Probably get to take a shower and eat.
You get a cell phone. You get
a
Jewish Family Services. It's a big immigration provider. They house you.
Jewish
they
Family
clothe you. They
Services.
transport you. They're getting millions of
Are
dollars.
they screening the people they're helping?
CBP is. They do multi-layered security systems as well.
But those are the ones you catch, because the Border Patrol has this thing. It's called getaways or gotaways, and those are the people that, guess what, got away. So if there's a Border Patrol vehicle, they can only arrest 2 people, maybe 4 people, right? And then 500 go past them. Those are what you call the getaways. They just go in the interior, and they're not pursued, they're not chased, and they're often get to a point where they're bussed somewhere else in America. No screening, no hepatitis check, no any check. There's no background check.
And forget that. There's MS-13. There's gang members. There's people who have been previously deported for crimes committed against children here. So they know that they can never get screened. They can't get caught. So I'm going to run for it. I'm going to pay a cartel to smuggle me in, 5,000 to 7,000. But forget that.
Is that what
about
it is?
the Chinese nationals coming in? What about the other nationalities that are coming in from Somalia? The 169 from Syria that were caught just in September alone. The people coming from terror-backed nationalities as well.
Right, they're sending them in, of course.
Of
But
course.
don't you
stupid.
think that the administration would have thought, hey, this is a bad idea. We should.
Yeah, I don't know why they can't see it. It's like it's obvious.
That's why the Biden administration, just on the down low, at the end of September, I
they're
don't know if
saying,
you saw this, they started rebuilding the
They're
wall.
like,
They
go ahead and build that fence.
We better build it now. Not just because of political pressure from the own Democrats that were like, hey, we're going to lose on this issue in 2024, but also to stop the terrorists coming in as well.
You know
But
what?
he gave away all the material.
They bought it back. They still had some of it. They wanted new
was rusting
material
on the
as well.
ground.
It was rusting on the ground. So they bought new material, they said, new bollards.
We already know we're at another 9/10. We're just waiting for another 9/11. Everyone feels it. Everyone can
Yes.
tell. Doesn't matter what political side you're on. Doesn't matter what religion you're on. We all know there's something going on, and people are prepping. Like it used to be like you'd hear, what's a prepper? 10, 20 years ago, it's like, oh, there goes Joe the prepper, always paranoid. Now every commercial is, buy this food,
Right.
guaranteed for 25 years. Protect your family.
Generators.
Generators.
Get your
Take this
generator.
book on how to attack a person, using your bare hands. I mean, it's all about prepping. Like, there's no more, you're a radical.
CCWs, rifle.
Right, CCWs.
Yeah.
I want my Second Amendment. Give me my weapons. The purchase of weapons is way up. The purchase of ammo is way up. So what does that tell the administration? Are they blind? That like we are saying, hey, something's going to happen here. We know it. At least stop the bleeding at the border. So the terrorists that are already in, we can maybe control. But there's still ones that are strategically going to get by, especially right now. If I was them fighting, I'd go, put as many people in America as you can so we can attack from within.
Well, you're assuming that they're operating out of national interest.
Right.
I
Right,
don't believe
there you go.
everybody in our government is trying to operate
Right, on a
out of
national-
United
right. They're
States
doing the
national
global
interest.
interest.
They're trying to disintegrate the border. We saw a little bit of that in the early NAFTA talks in the 1990s.
Right.
It was to
Right.
establish an economic corridor. But to your point, we also have to step back and look at the trifecta of this perfect storm going on. Global war, possible terrorist attacks, and then the economy. What would that cause? Whose interest would that serve if all of these dominoes fall into place? You know, all of a sudden we live in a totally new political spectrum, in a political world where maybe the federal government doesn't have total control. Maybe we divert into nation states type of regional alliances. I'll never forget, part of my job as an immigration attorney is reading a lot of national security, travel advisories, visa bulletins, a lot of country conditions reports. In 2012, there was a great piece written by a Soviet political scientist, and he also successfully predicted the fall of the Soviet coalition. And he said that eventually America would fall into three sectors. One that would, in the Pacific coast, meaning California, Washington, and Oregon, that would fall under a Chinese economic sphere of influence. And where's Gavin right now?
China.
He's in China, yes. The Midwest would largely be on their own, you know, asserting their states' rights. And then the eastern seaboard would fall under the European Union, mainly through an economic system of trade. I think that more and more we're starting to pull away as Americans, where we can't even condemn Hamas, condemn atrocities. We're fighting over each other. We're calling each other oppressor.
We're definitely not
You're
united.
white. I'm Mexican. I hate you. I can't stand you. I mean,
How did all this happen?
Nonsense.
It seemed like, I mean, obviously, of course, the blacks were being persecuted, and they still aren't. There's a lot of racism, but it seems like I thought it was getting better. Like I never had
used, weaponized politically for political purposes. Like you saw it in Latin and South America, and I love reading history. That's what I do in my spare time. That was my major at UCSD in history. What you saw in Latin America, it's a division of classes by economic classes. It doesn't work here in the United States because if you're Latino, you can also aspire to be middle class. What does work here is race. And that's what they're saying. We're starting to divide along race, fighting
Jews, Muslims.
But it's so funny that if you look at, like, Miss Israel was black.
Yeah.
Like, she's black. There's black Jews. There's Hispanic Jews. There's white Jews. There's Ethiopian Jews. There's Russian Jews. Like, there's no color. It's a religion. However, it's the only race that is categorized by their religion.
Right.
You don't say, well, I'm a Christian, I'm a
If
Muslim.
like Italians, like
I'm
like
Italian,
us. You don't say, hey, Catholic.
Yeah. No. So my family's from Italy. So you're like, oh, guy's got Italian blood.
If you're anywhere, you're like, oh, there's a Jew.
Yeah, it's like, there's no look.
Yeah, there's no look.
I mean,
you're a Jew,
they
I
say
hate
there's
you.
a look because, it's, you know, the European Jews look. But if you look at some of the...
Even the Israeli IDF, they look like Arabs.
They look exactly, There's
I'm watching the IDF going. I'm like, are those the terrorists or the IDF?
Right.
They're all. It seems like they're all.
Well, it's
Arabs.
like that. It's like that show that's on Netflix. That really good one, Fauda.
Oh, I have to watch that.
Oh, those guys, the Israelis look like Arabs. They speak Arabic and stuff like that.
Well, there's 40 nationalities that are hostages right now.
Wow.
There's two
That's
Mexican
great.
nationals. There's people from Cambodia. There's Americans. You know, it encompasses all races.
Are they Jewish
Judaism.
or are they?
Yes, they're Jewish, Mexican, dual nationals as well. So that's why they're the Mexican government.
I wonder why they're keeping them so long. It seems like if you want to stop them blowing up buildings, release the hostages.
Leverage.
Yeah, but I mean, the leverage isn't working. Israel is pounding them. Okay,
Well,
so
you've
I
got
don't know how much leverage.
psychos on drugs. They're not really
Right, exactly.
that
We're not
rational.
dealing with-
I don't think they're that smart.
If your motivation is to inflict terror, what terrorizes God-fearing, life-affirming culture more than women being live-streamed, that they're in hostages, 5-month-old children at the hands of your enemies.
Right.
You know, this is what terror
is evil.
You do
That
it
is
on
evil.
civilians.
Right.
You don't do it on military men who can defend themselves or
Right.
trained psychologically to endure torture.
Right.
They're doing this to helpless people. That's terror. That's why they won't let them go.
Well, they're gonna go in there and they're gonna free the Palestinian people.
Yeah, I don't
all.
think Hamas is going to be very victorious on this one. I think they finally, poke the bear a little bit too much, and Israel every once in a while has to say, "We are the chosen people," and God does protect it. It seems like such a little
Absolutely.
piece of real estate.
Yom
Oh my God!
Kippur War.
Yeah, when you look at Israel, it's just a dot surrounded by all
The
these
size
Arab.
of New Jersey.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that place can ever be taken down. And it almost seems like right now there is a bigger presence helping Israel because no one else is helping them.
It's
of course,
all about
everyone bounces.
Jerusalem.
No one's coming in to help Israel. I mean,
No.
I shouldn't say no one. I'm sure there's a few countries. But relatively speaking, it seems like they're saying more and more people are starting to go against Israel, all because of 1,400 people that were slaughtered by disgusting psychopaths. And it was almost like you don't even see that anymore on the news.
No,
You don't see it.
no.
Where's all that?
Right. Free the
There's
hostages.
there's a lot of
No.
there's a lot of footage. You're seeing the bombing in Palestine, 7/24. What about that day where people were running, getting shot in the streets? Because the videos I saw were very graphic, and these guys were just like running from a party. They look like it looked like you're in Ocean Beach.
Being hunted down.
And then you see a guy just trying to run across the street in a t-shirt and swim shorts, and just a bullet hits him right in the head and he just collapses. And then they come and they shoot him more. The guy's already dead, but they just want to keep shooting. They're not showing that anymore.
No, I think more and more we're going to see a rise of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Israel is going to stand alone. I mean,
Well, I think Israel's going to teach the world something that they're going to have to learn the hard way. It's like, don't mess with Israel.
They'll never be destroyed. I
Yeah.
hate to, deflate the Hamas ideology. Yeah. They will never be destroyed. God put his imprint there. His house is in Jerusalem. And again, spiritually speaking, this is what it's about. It's about they want to take down. And as a Christian, we believe that when Jesus Christ returns, that's where he's going to touch down. That's where he's going to reign and govern. So there's a lot of people, all eyes are on Israel for a reason. God's going to show up for you guys.
I think the people that are pro-Israel are just being quiet right now. And I think there's a majority of them are pro-Israel.
Absolutely.
Around the world.
400 people in the
right,
Congress.
you see some protests and you see these people chirping and yelling and screaming. But the bottom line is,
the
news.
news shouldn't even put those guys on.
Why do they do that?
They should just not even give them
and they're complaining that the media is owned by the Jews. So why are the Jews filming this?
They should never put when
what
they're protesting.
Side are they
don't
on?
give them any. Don't give them any
oxygen.
Like when they do with when they do with somebody who's murdered people.
Right.
They don't even use their name.
Well, they're doing it with this guy because they had the one guy that killed 18 people. They're really pushing that. It's still going. The story's still going. It's like, who cares about this guy? I don't want to know about him. Okay, he was mentally sick. He said he was.
It's about the narrative to
Yes,
take the guns.
it's
the more
exactly.
it's there,
Yeah.
it's about give
It's just
us
about
your
the guns,
Just
right.
please.
And I don't
stop
like when
these
they
mass
call it
murderers.
gun violence because it's not gun violence.
Right,
They
human
don't. When
violence.
somebody uses a car to run over people, they don't say it's human violence. More people are killed with knives. They don't say it's knife violence.
Right.
It's mental illness.
They knew the guy was mentally ill, and they still released him. Why did they release him?
He
This is
said, "I
another
feel like
failure.
shooting people. I don't feel well. There's voices in my head." And he's a trained, Army Reserve, special weapons instructor. How to manipulate yourself in a force. The guy knows what's going on. And he comes and he goes, "Hey, man, these voices are telling me to kill people. Why wouldn't you take his guns? You're telling me about this bullshit red flag, yellow flag, green flag. The guy's in there. He's having a mental illness crisis. He's telling you he's not stable. Take him in, go to his house, say, hey, I'm just going to secure all the weapons from you because we don't want you hurting yourself. We're going to give them back, but let's take care of you." Nothing.
Yeah, I'm not against. I'm pro Second Amendment, but I'm not against red flags when you have some guy going in there going, "I'm going to kill my wife."
Right,
He had 10 red flags, and they still didn't stop him. He
What do
had
they
10.
want? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if this guy would have survived, maybe they would have just called him and let him go back home and keep his guns. It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world.
You know what? But I think there are a lot of really sane people like Esther. And Esther, I got to just always say,
I agree.
Whenever I see you on TV, you're so articulate and so well spoken, just like this podcast, that you should
you could touch other
be
people.
running for office. We'd vote for Esther.
Well,
for
she's
governor.
going to,
Thank
but
you.
Esther for
she
governor.
doesn't know. We're gonna put her on that. We're gonna help her with that. She should be in the public.
And
because she speaks articulately. A lot of people are asking these questions, Esther, because Mark and I speak to a lot of people. And first of all, they feel insecure, especially
Yes, they do.
the Jews or even the Christians and the Catholics. Everyone's feeling like, what can we do? You almost have to ignore it because you feel helpless. When your own government is not securing a border, and we live in San Diego, we see the migrants coming across. They're in all of our neighborhoods. We're not anti-immigration, and that's what they keep saying. That's a bunch of BS. You have to have a border security. We're in war, okay? You could say whatever, proxy war. We're putting troops on the ground in a lot of places. Syria, they're attacking our troops. We're still in a war. Secure our borders. You're securing the Ukrainian border. You're helping everybody else. What about our border?
I think there's just a lack of moral character and clarity that's lacking in a lot of our politicians. And you saw this going back to ancient Rome. People are just serving their own self-interest. Fundamentally, a lot of the political class, they're grifters. They're making money. They just don't have a real job or a career that they can make money off. And let's jump on this political train. I have nothing better to do.
Right.
And they stay in office and they've never had a real job. Like
Right.
you guys know what it takes
Right.
to run a business, make payroll. I got to make payroll on
Right.
Tuesday.
Right.
We know what it takes. It takes a lot of sweat, a lot
Right.
of tears and sacrifice. They've never had to sacrifice
Never.
anything.
Right.
They're just living high on the hog.
Right.
And, it separates them from the real people that are right now struggling with all-time high inflation rate. They can't afford a home. You guys
Right.
know it better than most people because you're both realtors. You know the high interest rates. I mean, just they're fighting for economic survival. And that's why it behooves those of us who have a little extra time for public service
Right.
to run for public office, speak out, speak for the right issues, and just keep pounding away and calling out the hypocrisy. We see it at the Board of Supervisors where they're allocating millions of dollars to help immigrants while immigrants that are already here living lawfully, they don't have money for food, clothing, housing. There's a
Right.
homeless crisis as
Right.
well. So if you want to help Latinos the most, why don't you help the Latinos that are already here, 30% of which are in poverty, 50% are in failing public schools, 60% of them can't read or write articulately because they go to failing public schools. Why don't you apportion that money here?
Right.
Because it serves a political purpose. They don't want to counter the big money that is in the restaurant industry, the hospitality industry,
Right.
the maintenance industry, the agricultural industry that wants this cheap labor of indentured servants that are coming in, child labor even. As reported on the New York Times, a lot of these migrant children are being found in car plants, in agriculture, in construction. Some of them have fallen off of scaffolding. They're 12, 13, 15-year-olds that are now making our cities and our homes because the big money wants to pay less. We have to talk about that economically. What's really the driver here? The hatred towards immigrants has no place in all of this, but what we should be targeting are the huge industries that are making the money. They want it. Fast food industry. It's a lot of it's
Right.
immigrant labor. You go have sushi tonight or whatever
Right.
you
Oh.
enjoy. The
In
kitchen's
San
all
Diego,
Latino.
every chef is Hispanic.
Yeah,
You go
they're
to get
great chefs.
sushi. You think you're gonna get a Japanese chef? You're not gonna get a Japanese chef. You're gonna get, you're gonna get a Mexican guy. in there.
You made a good point,
Construction.
Esther. So you and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of politicians, and it's really sad how really just hollow, empty suits, empty skirts, whatever
Right.
you want to say. It's because they're not in there because they're smart. They're in there because they're dumb, and they are.
He said it, not me.
And I'll tell you why they're in there, because they're dumb. Because they get their marching orders from whoever funded their campaign.
Right.
And they go, you don't have a job. You have no, like you just said, you don't have any
Career
real skills.
skills,
You have
nothing.
So
Right.
we're going to put you in this really cool job and everybody's going to like you.
6 figures.
And we're going
Right.
to tell you what to say
And how to
what
vote.
to do. And if you don't do that, then we're going to take you out and we're going to put another puppet in there.
Right.
So when you look at your politicians, whether it's San Diego, Los Angeles, wherever, it's not just like this geographic location.
Right.
That's why when you see them speak like on national TV or on local TV, you're like, this person sounds like a moron.
They're
Like,
not the
what-
best
like-
and the brightest
no,
anymore.
because they don't want them to be the best and the
No.
brightest. Because someone
Right, well,
like you or
yeah.
me who have a mind of their own,
Yeah.
they couldn't wait to get us off the board. They were
Right.
just wishing that they don't want us. They don't want people that are going to come in there and try and change education and
Right.
try and say, hey, you know what? These kids need some more
Yeah,
time.
what you're doing is wrong. I mean,
Right.
how many different ways can you do? See if you're doing good or bad. You're doing bad. No, like now you don't want the SAT. You don't want exams. People are not reading. Not 6 or 7 year olds. not 10 or 11, 17, 18-year-olds are leaving
Listen to
without
this.
being able to read.
Esther, you'll know this. In 50 years, they haven't been able to close the thing. It's called the achievement gap. It's the gap between white students and Hispanic and black students. And they've thrown money at them. They've tried everything other than, hey, why don't you just lower your class size and get more teachers and extend the school year? This is not a hard fix. If a person isn't learning everything in a certain amount of time, how do you take somebody who comes into America, they're 14 or 15, they don't speak English, and go, all right, you have to learn how to speak English, pass all these tests, and they can't. They need more time.
Well, and they want more money. They want raises in salaries. And most of the school budgets, the school district where I presided, most of it goes to labor and to retirement funds. And just a little bit extra goes to the actual classroom and the learning. And of course, the parents don't want us to, they get riled up when we want to cut the teachers' salaries. I don't want to cut teachers' salaries, but you have to look at fundamentally the retirement system's broken. And here in California, our California Teachers Association is weaponized, politicized. In the last election, they were sponsoring Planned Parenthood.
Right.
They were sponsoring Democratic lawmakers that were sponsoring abortions and children who want to have abortions, underage girls coming in, being transported here into California to have free abortions. Why would a teachers union be funding abortions, but they also fund pro-immigration open borders candidates as well? Because they know demographically the average white person's having less children, the average white female's having lower pregnancies. The only demographic that is growing are Latinos. To be able to justify the classroom size, the classroom expenditure, the public school system that is enormous, you need more kids. Even if every woman got pregnant right now, we wouldn't see that child in a classroom seat till in 5 years.
Right.
Bring in the immigrants. It helps the California Teachers Association. And it goes round and round. It's follow the money. And it's just really sad here in California because, again, going back to the achievement gap, as a school board member, I was in a school district where we had a sizable minority of Latino students. It was between 12 to 18%. There was an achievement gap there, and we're talking about one of the best school districts in the nation as well, let alone in Los Angeles and statewide. Latino students have for decades fared poorly, but we pour more money into it. And the New York Times published an article I wish everybody would read or look up, where Latinos govern the school boards, the students do worse. Why? Because most Latinos are liberal. They've subscribed to a lot of liberal ideologies. Let's fund biliteracy programs. Let's fund after-school programs. Let's fund CRT. Everything that has nothing to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. So you're funding failure, and then, there's an achievement gap still. The Latino students still can't read or write. If I hadn't attended a Christian private school because the owners took a pity on my family I had 3 older sisters. They gave us reduced tuition. If I hadn't gone to a private school from the time I was kindergarten to 8th grade, I probably wouldn't know how to read and write, and I'd probably be a Democrat politician. I'd be running the city, and I'd be senator right now.
Have you thought, like, as we go?
I would.
You blew it.
I blew it.
But as we go through this, podcast, there's a common theme. When you look at all the cities that have the highest crime, all the cities that are failing the most, all the school districts that are failing the most, it's a common theme. Run by Democrats. Like, it's like, okay, you want your kids to go to a better school, you want your kids to be better.
Yeah.
Your party is failing.
Right.
And I'll tell you the secret sauce on all of this. There's in a lot of cultures, and this is one bad thing, we have a lot of wonderful things in Latino culture, family, traditions, values. We love our children. We sacrifice. We cross rivers, hot deserts for our kids.
Right.
We struggle. We call it luchonas. We love to struggle. But one of the bad things is there's a lot of envy. You get envious of your neighbor who's doing better. We haven't learned that lesson from Vietnamese and the Koreans and the Italians and the Jews. You pulled together coming to this country. Oh, there's a new immigrant. You formed immigrant welcoming societies. We don't do that. We want to get ahead. We're
Right.
very family oriented, very tribal.
Right.
One of the bad things, and this people don't understand this, is that a lot of the Latino lawmakers, they don't want those younger generations doing better. They don't want
right.
them to
I heard that's a
succeed because
cultural
you get
thing,
to
yeah.
stay in power. You get to be in the limelight.
don't wanna
Like I
just-
said, I would be ruling San Diego right now if I had that mindset, because
Right.
it's like I alone can do it because I alone have
Right.
the Berkeley Law degree. I alone went to UCSD. I alone am an immigration attorney. So
you're the top dog.
I need to
Right.
tell you
Gotcha.
what to do.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to get ahead because then you might take my spot. So it's all about fighting for survival, and we never get ahead. So it's also something that we have to talk about as Latinos as well. There's something in us that we don't have that helpful willfulness to be able to help the neighbor because, oh no, she might take something I want.
But I'll tell you something that's nice about Mexico and Mexican culture. It looks like the next president of Mexico is going to be a female
And Jewish.
and Jewish on
She's
top of it.
Jewish.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, that is means. Look, I love Mexico, and I loved going. Like, okay, we grew up poor, just to let you know. So we were just like you. We came from a single family home. Our dad left when we were young, and when my mom remarried, we still didn't have money. So we used to have to shop in TJ for clothes. So we go to Tres Hermanos to buy our shoes.
Oh my goodness, I went to
That's-
Tres Hermanos
that's where we
too.
go to
On
buy.
Revolucion.
We go to there. We go there and
love you
shop
guys.
and buy our clothes. And my parents would always be nervous when we go to Mexico, because of course Frank and I would ditch into a side store on Revolution and buy firecrackers or whatever.
Right.
We wouldn't
Oh,
try
that's
and
right.
bring them over. So,
No, I can't believe it.
yeah,
I cannot.
So, but back when we were growing up in the '60s,
Yeah.
we didn't see this. There wasn't this big divide. Like well, at least we didn't feel it. Like
Right.
to go to Mexico was like
No, you cross the border.
we're
easy.
going to our neighborhood. Like
Right.
That's because there was economic parity with Mexico. At one time, people don't understand the Mexican peso was on par with the American dollar.
There you go.
Yeah, you were economic partners. There wasn't this flush need of economic migrants coming in. It wasn't until the 70s
Right.
with Portillo that there was an economic collapse that most people started saying, I got to go up to America now to work.
right.
Before we had the Bracero program in the 40s, people just went there seasonally. I don't really want to stay in America. I want to stay and eat tacos. I want to eat good food. I want my family. I own crops over there. I have land. They'd go here and leave. But because of the economic implosion and collapse in Mexico and a lot of Latin America, because of Soviet-backed regimes coming in through dictatorships and soft socialist programs, it collapsed the economy, so you have economic migration coming in, vast majorities coming in. And that's something, again, going back to our family values. You do whatever it takes for your family. I represent men who work 2 jobs, women who work 2 jobs, 6 days a week, and they're relying on the public school system to educate their kids. They're never home. They don't know that their kids are being indoctrinated in the very ideologies that they fled back home in Nicaragua or
Correct.
Honduras. They don't speak English. So again, it goes back to those of us who speak the language, who have extra time to engage in civics, engage in politics, and stand up for people who are defenseless, poor, the oppressed. And that, going back to Judeo-Christian values, that's what it calls us to do, stand up for those who are defenseless and poor. The legal traditions of Jewish legal scholars here in America, I mean, that's what they've inherently done, stood up for the little guy. And that's what we're still called to do. I hope more and more people from private industry step out because we need it. We can't just, by default, this is why we're ruled by these pitiless people who are not very smart intellectually. You can tell they're reading from a speech. It's not sporadic, it's not spontaneous, because when you're telling the truth, you don't have to memorize anything.
Right. It just comes
You
out.
really don't.
So you know what's funny that you say that, because here's what we're seeing, because we're seeing this reverse now. So now what Frank and I are seeing, and I've actually sold homes in the United States to people, seniors that are on fixed income. They're moving to Mexico. Right. They're like, I can't afford to live in San Diego.
Yes.
So we've driven up the real estate in TJ is like
Tijuana.
Tijuana. It's expensive now, and we I'm on the international committee here at the San Diego Association of Realtors. we have these really good partnerships with realtors in Mexico. Like we meet with them all the time. And so we're bringing people from America down to Mexico, to Rosarita, to Ensenada, and some of the people here in San Diego.
And Tijuana right now, if you look, it's booming right now.
Right.
They're building
Yes.
some really nice things. I just went there. I was a guest speaker on a panel. There was about 400 people there. And when I went there, it was like I was in La Jolla. Like, it was beautiful. The hotel we're staying at, I'm watching all these, cranes building. And I'm like, hey, we should talk, because in Mexico, you don't really have to be a licensed realtor. It's just wild, wild west. So I'd like to take it over. Yeah, I'd like to go over there and say, hey, let's get the people licensed. I mean, there's a whole bunch, and a lot of Mexican nationals like to buy property here. So it's a back and forth. It's our economy. So I just wanted to see the border just fixed. It's going back to the border. It's just so disheartening to see. Like drug cartels, throwing, babies in the water. I mean, I guess they're floating, so they don't, just to drift. So the Border Patrol now has to go rescue the baby, and the people get to walk across. But now the Border Patrol, if you see them, they're nothing more than social workers. There's no more enforcement.
Right.
I mean, zero.
They're changing diapers, giving water
Yeah,
bottles. They're being called
and
out
these
by NGOs saying you're not doing your job well
Right.
enough.
And if you talk to the Border Patrol,
caretaking for them.
right? And the Border Patrol agents, I've spoken to several of them. They're whole family guys. They all have their kids.
40% are Latino.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
from Mexico. They're
Yeah.
taking care of these people, and they're almost like demonized. And it just seems like why is the Border Patrol getting the hit on this? It has nothing to do with the Border Patrol. It's a national policy that's opening the borders. The Border Patrol isn't blowing it. They could stop that thing as soon as they get they could stop it in one day.
People want lawlessness. And going back to your visits in Mexico, for the first time in 20 years, we had more Venezuelans overtake Mexican nationals coming in through the border. So it's a fallacy to understand that or believe that most Mexicans are coming over here. They're not.
No.
More Venezuelans are
Right.
coming in from
Like
Haiti,
China,
Cuba, Venezuela.
like all sorts of
Yes,
a lot
because
of
the Mexican
Africans
economy
now.
is doing pretty well.
Good,
If it
yeah.
wasn't for the cartel violence and it wasn't for 8 out of the 10 most violent cities in the world are in Mexico, it'd be booming, right? It'd be thriving. And that's what we want. We want our neighbor to the south to do well.
You want it to do so well that even if you take out the whole fence, no one will want to cross.
Right.
All they need is economic stability.
Absolutely, but now you had that hurricane in Acapulco.
Oh my God, that was huge. That was bad.
We're going to see a fresh
First one
influx
in the-
of more refugees.
First one in history, isn't it?
That had hit
a level
Acapulco, I
5?
believe so. The military's in there. There's
Yeah.
lawlessness. There's chaos as well. But again, if they wanted
Really?
to fix the border, they absolutely could have. And it's a very simple fix. You just enforce the laws that are already there. You deport people who are here. You have no right to be here. No, you don't qualify for asylum. And I get really passionate about that because I represent hundreds of Mexican and Central American families that have been waiting for their immigration papers for 20 years.
Jeez.
23 years. That's how long it takes.
Wow.
So
Well, no wonder they're crossing.
When
Yeah.
people say, do it the right way, they are doing it the right way. But because there's such a fresh wave upon wave coming in, they get backlogged.
So the people that should be in here are getting just
So you have business
forever.
for 100 years. Like you just got them lined up.
Yeah, no wonder you don't want to be a politician. You got plenty of work.
Exactly.
Well, I screen them. That's why I keep doing interviews because it's so easy to screen. I can't be dishonest and take a case that I know has no chance of prevailing. I would just be stealing money from the poor. So I tell them, you have no case. I'm sorry. You just told me you're an economic migrant. You didn't suffer any harm in your country of interest. You just got a call from your relative and said, come over here. It's a free-for-all. And they came over. I can't take their money. So really, I'm doing what the U.S. government should be doing. It takes 3 minutes, Mark. It takes 3 minutes to ask a person, why did you come here? What's your proof that you were raped, murdered, harassed on account of your race, religion, political opinion, nationality, or a nation of origin? I have none. Okay, there's no case.
Bye.
So
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
I want to go back to the religion part because I love the Christian religion. I love what they stand for and good people. But I've seen, starting probably in the 60s, this removal of religion from the United States of America. that we became a more secular, like God doesn't really exist. Why are you going to church? And
Men
then,
are pregnant.
yeah, men can be pregnant and whatever. That's just a whole nother topic. But I think that people just inherently need some association. So they've adopted this liberal, whatever it is, that's their religion now. Because,
Yeah, it seems
because
like
they depleted the school.
Seems like the Democrats' religion is being a Democratic Party, and
Right.
the people they pray to are, the president, the people around him.
A big
They
government.
worship them, and
What do you think?
If you say anything about him, you get an
You see in the
argument.
French Revolution, when you destroy the old gods, something else moves in. It becomes tyrannical. You
Right,
got
right.
beheadings. You got the guillotine. When socialism tried to move into Spain, to Chile, and you get these dictatorships, you get genocide, you get murder. In Argentina, we saw this as well. This is what happens when you remove God, and I mean any God.
Right.
You remove a form of belief and of values higher than yourself. We have this inherent need to be accountable to something greater and divine. That's why we love art, right? Those of us who are art lovers, we go there because it's something transcendent and sublime. It reminds us of our imago Dei, our image of God, that we're better than this, right? Our better angels. You remove that, and then you just have savagery. It
Right.
just
That
depends. My
void.
morality is contextualized. Hamas didn't do all bad because look what the Israelis did. No, they can't call out evil to be inherently evil because it's all contextualized. It's all subjective.
Right.
Well, George Floyd, he may have been a bad person, but it doesn't matter. He got killed in a bad way. Hey,
Right.
both sides were evil, and it was wrong. So, I think to your point about religion, it's not just religion, it's what it means. It's the adoration of something better. It's that accountability. And once you remove that, then we get everybody doing what they believe is best in their own
Right.
eyes. You get division, and that's what happened to the nation of Israel. That's why they were divided into two territories. That's
Right.
what the Bible says in Chronicles. Every Israelite did what was best in their own eyes. They just wanted to worship whoever they did. We got child sacrifice back then, and we have child sacrifice now.
Right.
That's why we have an immigration problem. Because since 1973, here in America, regardless of what you believe on abortion, just demographically, just in terms of pregnancies, we lost 65 million Americans. So that means there weren't 65 million construction workers, realtors, teachers, doctors, plumbers, electricians, lawyers to be able to make the society function. So if you were the government, wouldn't you want 65 million Latinos to come in, which is the exact number of Latinos in our census, our last census? That's what we represent. We're the 65 million replacement workers. You can look it up. The Guttmacher
Wow.
Institute
Right.
cites abortion statistics since 1973, 65 million abortions. That's how
65
many
million.
Latinos are in this country. We're the labor force. You abort a child, you end a future. You end a career. Okay? Do
Right.
what you want. Okay? Do what you want. I'm not going to stop you.
Right.
But it has real economic
Yeah.
impacts. So, and the teachers union knows this. They need the seats. So, if you're funding abortion, you also need those children here to
So they
be
let
able
them
to
in. So they
supplant
just go
your
open
children.
it up. Yeah, let
Yeah.
'em
The
in.
Latinos
Right.
are having 3 to 4 children per woman statistically. I don't cite this off the top of my head. They're just having more children because they get pregnant earlier.
But aren't Latinos more conservative just because of their religion than? Wouldn't you think they would align themselves with the Republican Party instead of the Democratic
It
Party?
goes back to self-interest. If somebody's promising you legalization, which the Democrats are great at sloganeering and
Right.
marketing, they always promise us the carrot every 4 years. We're going to legalize you. Oh, Trump hates Latinos, and he doesn't want to legalize the Dreamers. And the Republicans, I think they play such bad optics whenever we yell the slogans. Well, you just got to do it the right way. Just work hard, and you'll get
exactly.
by on your bootstraps. Just stop that. Court. Just like you
Just like-
court the business community, you court the medical industry, you have lobbying groups for Republican interest groups, court the Latinos.
Right.
There's a way to do this, and just explaining to them. And it takes time. Most of them aren't highly educated. Only 10% have a bachelor's or a master's degree, or something higher. Most of them are just elementary level education. So you have to take time and explain, like, hey, this goes against your Catholic faith. This goes against what you're teaching them. We are a macho culture. And I say that, not out of pride, but because our whole language is gendered. Everything ends in an O or an A, signifying O for a male, A for a female. So if you tell a Latino parent, hey, they want to turn your boy into a girl and they're teaching little girls and little boys that boys can get pregnant, you will get an angry parent.
Exactly.
You will get an upset Latino parent, and you'll get a Republican. The Republicans need to go out and do that. And I love all the other things that we represent, like medical liberty, free speech, Second Amendment. But most Mexicans, that doesn't rile them up, especially not the economic issues, because we're mostly poor. What does rile them up are anything to do with children. Don't mess with children. Exactly. That's why they ran the border. That's why they crossed the river. That's why they crossed the desert. That's why mom got raped, to get that child over here.
Well, why don't they get that? That sometimes I look at that party and I go, man, you guys, like, you have the two parties, the evil party and the stupid party, and I was like, geez, you know what I mean?
I don't know why we play it to lose. I mean, it's such a winnable faction of conservative, religious people who love God, who love America. They want to be accepted. They're working in our businesses. They're cleaning our offices. Why don't we just get them over to our side? Like, can we just realize as Republicans there will be an amnesty? Can we just say that?
Right,
yeah,
like they
absolutely.
deserve to be legalized?
Right. I never understood this.
Can we just stop this whole no amnesty? We will. You need amnesty.
How are you going to take a person?
Right, put them
They
in
got
the
here
military.
when they were 3 years old, went in the military, served our country, and then say, you're not a citizen?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
How are you going to
So
deport
stupid.
grandma's caretaker?
You're not.
You're not going to.
Grandma's
It's not gonna happen.
landscaper?
No. You're not
The
going to.
person who serves grandma food?
No.
You're never
Give them all
going to
listen,
do it.
here's the deal we got to make.
Just stop
How about we
this.
secure the border, and everyone who is on this side,
It's already in.
You're in. But
That's
you got to
the
start
plan.
it somewhere.
Yep.
So you're in. So these immigrant workers don't have to work in the shadows. They have no social security number. They have no rights. They feel like they're being harassed anywhere they go. They feel like they live in the shadows, which they do. They're usually on a poverty level. Why don't we just make all of them citizens and give them what everyone else has, and get them out of the shadows? And if they want to be housekeepers, they can have a business of housekeeping now, and they can have 10 people, and they can start to have the American dream. It seems like just there's no plan. There's no plan.
It just rallies
I think that's the plan.
people for the elections, right? You've got one party, the Republican Party saying, we're going to deport them. No, you're not.
No.
You don't have the
No,
manpower.
and the Republican Party on the
You
right are so
don't.
stupid. They're saying the wrong
That's what I
message.
said.
They
It's
are.
like,
Yeah, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? You're going to deport anyone. You're going to have a mass deportation. That's the. Fortunately, we know that the politicians lie. They can say whatever they want. They're never held accountable.
Yeah,
You can say,
they're
like,
not gonna
when
do
I get
it.
to office, I'm going to secure that border. How many presidents said that? 0. Are they fired? No. So they get to lie. They get
And
to
then
say
the
whatever.
Democrats are like, when I get to office, we're going to legalize you. We're going to give
Right,
you amnesty.
lie.
You're going to be here. So all the Latinos flock over
Right,
there.
right.
And I think they're starting to get the memo and realize, gosh, we got played.
Oh,
we're
totally
never
played.
getting legalized.
They want your vote, and
Biden's
that's all.
been in office 3 years. There's
Right.
no amnesty program
Right.
for DACA recipients.
Well,
They
wasn't
represent over
Obama in there for
400.
2 terms? What did he do?
2 terms he gave us DACA, which is
Yeah.
a work permit. These young people, they want to serve the military. The military can't reach their cap enrollment. They need Latino young men.
Right.
And we have the largest, youngest demographic is in the Latino community.
Right.
You want a young person?
Right.
4 out of 10 of them are Latinos. So they need them. Why don't they legalize them? So, just memo to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Just you are going to have an amnesty. Do legalize the DACA recipients.
Right.
Also, do
100%.
all your campaigns in Espanol. Go
Right,
down
right.
there. Welcome everybody.
Yes.
Run Spanish campaigns.
Right.
Court the Mexican Latinos because they are going to fight the jihadists because they are
Right.
people of
They're
the
Americans.
faith of the cross.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
Mexicans are warriors, and they work hard. I always look at them and go, like, there's no one who works harder. They never complain. If you hire
Right.
anyone who's like a Mexican male, if I get like 3 of them, let's build a wall. Man, they never even ask for food. They never ask for water. They never ask for anything. And they're
My daughter's on
constantly
a
working.
construction site
They're
right
so
now.
strong.
She's an engineer. She's a civil engineer.
Yeah.
She's working at it.
Yeah.
You know, we hustle, we work, we love our jobs because it feeds our kids.
By the way,
we're not
good-
going to overtake the government. We're not.
Good
We're not
job,
going to overthrow it.
It's not easy being a single parent, and it's not easy raising daughters. I know. I mean, I'm not
You
a
got
single.
2.
I have 2, but that's a good job, Mom.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank
on that.
you.
Daughter's
you
an
did really
engineer and working
Yeah.
at a construction site, standing on her own 2 feet, doesn't need anybody, can do it herself.
So where should we put you politically? What do you want to do?
I think maybe supervisor. I mean, if I want Faulkner to win, but if you can't take her down, somebody's got to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you should go bigger than that. I mean, I think that you're already on you're more national level. I love politics, and I see politicians, and I interview them, and I talk with them, and there's a certain level that stay at a certain level. You know, you got your city council people, you got your supervisors, and they scramble, PTA, I mean, all the way down to school. But there's sometimes, every once in a while, you find someone where you go, you got to leapfrog into a bigger position. So keep that in mind, because I see it more at a national level.
Thank you so much for that. But I was raised in Juan Vargas's seat. That's where my heart is.
Yeah.
That's where I lived in Section 8
Talk
housing.
to Juan Vargas. I met him. He's
He's-
super cool.
He's super cool. He needs to
He
give
gave me
up
the
the
best
seat.
tour of the
He's
Capitol.
been there way too
Yeah.
long,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
people
Well, maybe
are
he's ready to
still in
retire.
poverty. Yeah,
Right.
there's still poverty level. The
Have a talk with
schools are
him.
not working out. Yeah,
I mean, he's a good.
absolutely.
I can tell you right now, he is a good man. And I met him, and I spent an evening with him, and he gave us a special like VIP tour when I was in Washington about the Capitol. Historian, kind, strong, not a wimp. The guy was fighting. He was telling me, you know, when the insurrection
Law.
came,
Yeah.
smart. So I think that you should have a conversation with him. I think he's he'd be a good guy to talk to.
Especially on immigration, it works
Absolutely.
for our national interest to be able to
He's here in
partner
San Diego.
with Republicans and just get Republicans to admit, look, we need the Latinos
But
here.
they're in a different party. So it
Well,
has
we
to
got to
be.
talk to him first, and we'll see what happens about that.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I think everyone's listen. I used to be a Democrat way back, and then things started changing in the Democratic Party for me. It wasn't making any sense. The people that they always try to help, they're hurting. You know, you can see this with the policies they put in. You can see it with real estate. You can see it with like rent control. You can take it down to our level, because Mark and I sell houses, and we see the policies that are being created. And every time they have a policy or a law, it always negatively impacts the person that they're trying to write it for. They have to be more open-minded. So I'm not part of them. I'm basically independent. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to take this side where the hard right is saying deport, and I don't want to take this side where they go open borders. I think the average American is like, hey, let's gain some control and work it out.
Well, it's so easy to talk to somebody who loves this country. That's it. That's got to be the qualifier. If you're fighting for national interest, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, it doesn't matter, because there are Republicans that are fighting against the national interests and just for their pockets, for their industry, to run again, to be in the limelight. You know, it's like, I don't know what is going on, why we're splintering on so many issues. And then there's Republicans that I don't agree with, because they are what I believe they're just fiscally conservative. They're not socially conservative. And I'm huge on the social issues, such as when I was on the school board, they passed a Menstrual Equity Act. And I was opposed to that.
What is that?
Having tampons in boys' restrooms because boys menstruate too. Again, it's an overall lie that, a transgendered girl wants to use the boys' restroom because she's wearing boys' clothing. She needs access to a tampon. So we had to provide tampons for boys in their restrooms as well. I'm opposed to that. And a lot of conservatives, they just want to stick to the real estate talk, the high interest rates, the cost of living, the gas tax. That's not me. And that's not most conservatives. I believe a lot of conservatives, they want to fight the social issues as well. So, no party's perfect, but our number one interest has to be America. And if we can't even agree on that, I think we have a huge splintering crisis here.
Can we take a 5-minute break? I have to go to the bathroom so bad.
Okay, so hey,
No, we're just
Frank,
going back.
Esther, I just really want to thank you for your public service, for your dedication to people,
Yeah.
for your kindness. You're a really good
you.
person. And I wish we had a lot more people like you. And we really enjoy having you here on Just to Let You Know, just the number 2 let you know. Remember to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell when you see this video.
And I want to also thank you so much. I think you're a voice of an educated voice of reason. I think that the majority of people believe in what you say.
Thank you.
Like everyone says, freedom is not free. We have to fight for it. And at some point, we have to figure out this border, the immigration, the terrorists, global economy. There's so many things to figure out. I'd like to right now invite you back to be a regular guest because I think you're a really good person to speak about these issues.
I accept. I
Cheers.
love
Yes,
you guys.
okay.
I love the
Yeah, it's a
dynamic.
handshake, all right?
Awesome.
We'll
You guys
shake
are a
on it.
lot of
Thank
fun.
you so much,
Awesome.
Thank you
Esther.
so much.
Thank you, Powell
Okay.
Brothers.
Okay,
All right.
that's a wrap.
That's it. We'll see you guys next week.